Look, I'm not one to be making videos based off of rumors. I usually like to talk about things that are confirmed to happen or already have. But in the case of Robert Pattinson's Batman possibly joining the DCU, what started as a bunch of idiotic clickbait scoops has slowly become something that actually seems likely now. And the turning point for me is not the fact that James Gunn himself has openly admitted to throwing that idea around with Matt Reeves, because those are tiny nothing burger conversations most of the time, more of a wouldn't that be nice kind of banter. But as the rumors began to grow even bigger and bolder since Gunn has made that statement, the Golden Globes happened this past week as of this recording, and when Reeves was asked about the Batman joining the DCU, he of course didn't confirm anything. But he went out of his way to say anything but the word no. Which of course doesn't mean they are actually following through with anything. But it sure as hell, at least to me, confirms they are 100% talking about it in a serious manner over at DC Studios. Which had me thinking about the possibilities of Pattinson's Bruce Wayne interacting with Cornsweat's Clark Kent. And as I sat on it and heard what others thought, not only did I grow to dislike the idea more and more, I genuinely believe if this idea is followed through, it has the potential to kill James Gunn's DCU. So sit back, relax, and let me tell you why. Pattinson quickly became a fan favorite Batman from pretty much the second the first trailer dropped, and well, he dropped that one thug. I mean, the reactions to that first real look at him in the role broke the internet and shot the expectations for this new take on the character through the roof. And now the mainstream audience has fallen in love with Reeves and Pattinson's version of the Caped Crusader, and the movie did better financially than anything the DCU has produced since pretty much 2018's Aquaman. On top of the profitable and critically acclaimed performance of the film playing a factor in this possible transfer over to the DCU itself was already set to have its very own Batman who will be having his own movie at the same time this Reeves universe is going on. Now, I have no problem with a few Elseworld projects here and there, but the idea of taking DC's most popular and beloved character and making a whole universe out of him while Gunn is working on making a main DC universe at the same time and basically having their Batmans compete with each other is such an outrageously horrendous idea. It's already hard to compete in a market where superhero projects are a dime a dozen. But now to do that with yourself?
Not a great plan.
So yeah, it makes sense that Warner Brothers would look at that and go, hold up, something's not right here. And want to fold the already popular current Batman into the main DC universe getting built. But the problem lies in the fact that Reeves' Batman universe is too grounded. There isn't any fantastical elements to it, and honestly, I feel with the inclusion of the Penguin show, this universe is in too deep to course correct and fit it into the DCU, and be a part of the larger than life tone Gunn is setting up. Maybe, just maybe, there could have been a way to do that if we just went right into the Batman Part 2. But the Penguin just solidified that this is not a universe where Man-Bat will be flying above Gotham's skyline, where Poison Ivy will be controlling plants with her mind, and Ra's al Ghul will be resurrecting people from the dead. And just to go back on that will be a disservice to the fans that have built a relationship with this version of Batman in Gotham and to Reeves' artistic integrity. And look, I'm not gonna lie, I would rather have a fantastical Batman than another version that is extremely grounded and realistic. But I also would rather like to see Matt Reeves' vision completed, not a vision messed with by another creative force. Now let's go a little bit further into the grounded approach Reeves has chosen to take and play devil's advocate real quick. Just because stories take place in a fantastical world doesn't mean they themselves have to be fantastical. They can be grounded and still work wonderfully amongst the backdrop of a larger than life universe. We see it all the time in the comics, especially with Batman, where his main run will be extremely fanciful, and then they'll have a miniseries where it's a grounded narrative. Hell, we've seen it done within the MCU. Daredevil takes place in the same universe as the Avengers, but the show itself is very grounded to realism. But here's the thing. The show acknowledges that the fantastical exists. They constantly bring up the Avengers and the Battle of New York. You know, when aliens came out of a giant portal in the sky? To the point where it's an actual plot device within the narrative. And so far, the Batman universe hasn't even gone as far to acknowledge that the possibility of a superpowered being could exist somewhere out there. And Gunn already made it clear that this is already a fully lived-in universe with all the fictional cities we love, and a population filled with metahumans. So, with all that said, let's for the sake of, well, say that the Batman Part 2 comes out, and at the very end, David Cornsweat's Superman comes flying down into Gotham and talks to Pattinson's Batman about making a league of their own. And the audience goes crazy and the movie now makes $1 trillion gazillion at the box office. What then? Well, let's look at a few different possibilities. Possibility 1. Continuing with the plans. If they were to actually fold Pattinson's Bruce Wayne into the DCU, keeping Andy Muschietti's Brave and the Bold would be a crazy risk, so it will most likely have to be cancelled at that point. Because once again, the main point in doing this transfer over to the DCU would be to not have self-competition, and the need to make 2 Batman movies at the same time that cost $200 million each. But if they were to follow through with both directors at the helm, it would be weird to have last seen Bruce in a movie that's clearly headed towards a specific vision with Matt Reeves' guidance, to then take a quick pit stop with Muschietti to tell the audience about the time Bruce busted a nut in Talia al Ghul and had Damian. And then you get right back to Reeves for the main adventure. People would be confused, like, why did we take a random sidebar that has nothing to do with the overarching story with Reeves? So, if they continued with their original plans and just threw Reeves' plans in there as well, that route would be a failure for sure if they decided to keep the Brave and the Bold around. Possibility 2, no Brave and the Bold. Let's say there isn't Brave and the Bold and they end up canceling it. Gunn would probably still want certain aspects from what they were originally planning to be incorporated into Reeves' scripts. Which, how heavily involved Damian was going to be, it could derail what Reeves is making, along with any other aspects they wanted to explore in The Brave and the Bold. And yes, I know there have been talks with a Robin possibly join the Pattinson trilogy, but in all honesty, I don't think Reeves would do that. I think that would count as something too fantastical for him. But to get back on track, these extra inclusions to fit it into the DCU could overstuff and overshadow Reeves' plans and cause for a messy story. So once again, this would most likely be another failure. Possibility 3, Gunn doesn't intervene. Alright, the last possibility branched into having another one. What if, just like possibility 2, they cancel Brave and the Bold, but in this possibility, Gunn simply lets Reeves do his original plan with no intervening. Besides the obvious, hey, make sure that you remember this, and that this takes place in this universe, so don't contradict this or that. And hey, maybe mention this event from this movie or show. You know, very minor things. Which, out of all these possibilities, this seems like the most likely if it were to happen. And I'm like 70-30 on this working. That being 70% sure this still wouldn't work out, and 30% of it possibly having a chance. And it goes right back to what we were talking about earlier. This universe is in too deep to course correct. And by doing this, you will upset the fan base by having to acknowledge the fantastical and say, yeah, this whole time the Green Lanterns have been flying around Gotham. And Superman, yeah, he was off fighting a kaiju in Metropolis. And no one has mentioned it before, even in passing or on TV thus far until now. It would come across almost fanfiction-y. And to get right to the point now, I simply can't see this version of Batman interacting with anyone who has superpowers, let alone Superman. Or, you know, having him fight Darkseid with the Justice League, or building a watchtower in space to protect Earth, or the billion other things that Batman in the DCU would be doing. It would be out of character and tone. So once again, I don't think this would work and would end up failing. And that would inevitably kill the DCU for good. Because, well, we've kind of already seen it happen before. Except with Superman. In 2016, Batman v Superman came out, and it kinda killed the DCU. Every stupid decision that Warner Brothers made after this movie released was pretty much in response of that one critical failure, and the fact that it didn't make $1 billion like that year's Captain America Civil War. They wanted to get to Batman and Superman in the same universe. They wanted to get to their Justice League as soon as possible, and look what happened. As a defender and lover of Batman v Superman, more so the Ultimate Edition, there was so much wrong with the approach to that film. From wanting to rush the Justice League team up, to rushing out world building that wasn't fully established in Man of Steel, to not having Ben Affleck's Batman have a solo movie before this one, to cutting 30 minutes of the film down, making it feel overstuffed, to doing the death of Superman too early on. But these aren't the main reasons it killed the DCU. It comes down to these two crucial aspects. One, as much as I love Batfleck and the idea that Snyder was going for with this older Batman that has lost his ways and kills people, making him an antagonist to Clark and his viewpoints of humanity, it rubbed most people the wrong way. They took DC's most famous character and gave everyone a bad taste in their mouth for him, until obviously later down the line people's tune changed. 2. The most important one being that Man of Steel wasn't supposed to launch a cinematic universe, but yet they forced it to happen anyway. David S. Goyer, who wrote Man of Steel with Christopher Nolan, did not intend for this to be the start of what became the DCEU. In fact, how this film got made was basically him and Nolan were working on the script for The Dark Knight Rises, and he hit a writer's block. So he decided to take a week off to clear his mind, and during that time, he was going through some old Superman comics, and the idea of Man of Steel came to him, and he pitched it to Nolan, who said if he wanted to make it, he would help him produce it. So they finished up The Dark Knight Rises, and they both went into writing the narrative together, and Goyer wrote the whole script with all the dialogue. Then they of course went to Snyder to direct, and the rest is history. But it was intended to be a stand-alone project that could get a proper sequel down the line, until Warner Brothers decided to change up those plans, forcing what was originally a grounded story into becoming a universe that has Darkseid coming to fight them, and then there's time travel and the multiverse and all that other fantastical elements. Which, I hear you, Iron Man came out and started the Infinity Saga. Yeah, and they took their time to get there. But the DCU, once again, rushed into it all way too fast. Anyways, this whole Reeves situation gets even more familiar when we look at who Warner Brothers originally looked at to play Bruce Wayne in Batman v Superman. It was in their minds going to be none other than Christian Bale, who turned down the offer because he wanted to keep the artistic integrity of the work he and Nolan did on that trilogy. Would that have worked more than Pattinson going into the DCU? Sure, since both Man of Steel and the Dark Knight films had a similar tone. But it still would have been shoehorning in a version of Batman in a universe that clearly didn't have people with superpowers. So that would have been a complete mess and a 100% failure if that ended up being followed through with. So now we're in the exact same situation all over again. And to backtrack a bit, with them putting out a Batman that wasn't well received at the time. That truly hurt the DCU because Batman is the face of DC, and if you fuck that up, you pretty much fuck up the future of the whole brand itself. So in conclusion, they have something great with the Reeves universe, and from watching Creature Commandos and the trailer for Gunn's Superman, it seems like we will be having something great in the DCU as a whole. But if they follow through with this idea, they will ruin a Batman people already love and have a set tone and distinction towards, turning it to something it was never supposed to be. Thus, causing it to have ripple effects and ruin a universe that so desperately needs to not just be good, not just great, but perfect and excellent beyond all belief. I honestly think the only real thing they can do is let Reeves finish up his overarching tale, and let Batman take a backseat in the DCU until it's all over. They can have him show up here and there through silhouette form like they did in Creature Commandos and through characters talking about him. And when the time is right, bring him out of the shadows and into the forefront of the DCU. But for now, all we have are rumors, and until anything concrete happens, we have to simply hope for the best, no matter what the outcome will be. because that hope for a great Batman and a great future for a DC cinematic universe and the DC brand as a whole is all we have right now. So let's keep our heads up and hopefully enjoy whatever comes next.